Our breath is different in different emotions. When we are happy, the breath is deep, long. When we are angry, the breath is fast, little in, little out. And when we are sad, the breath is little in and more out. It's like something like this. When we are shallow, the breath is also shallow. So, one way is we change our emotion and then change the breath, or then bring the happiness in life. If your body is moving, you are not listening properly. Our breath is changing, the body will move. There is a worry in the mind, the body will move. The dynamics of breath are that if we control our breath, if we regulate it nicely, then our emotion also changes. So please sit on a chair and stop, sit and sit comfortably. One way is we change our breath. Second way is we change our emotion. So if we make our breath deep, long, our emotion also changes. That doesn't mean that we don't have to do work on changing the emotions. Both together works the best. If you noticed, the animal who has shorter breath has the long life. Like a turtle, it has 3-4 breath in a minute, and its lifespan is 200 to 300 years. Same way, your pets like dog has 15 to 20 breath. The lifespan is around 10-12 years. And similarly, the human breath, and accordingly the age of the human. So to practice the deep, long breathing, you can do it anywhere. Walking, talking, doing your work, sleeping when you are conscious. If you breathe deep, long, then you're giving more oxygen to the body. So more the oxygen, the lung capacity increases. So for the shallow breath, we use 40 to 60% of lungs. Rest remains unutilized. So if we breathe deep long, then that capacity get increased. Then there is more oxygen for the body to use. Other than this, there are alveoli which doesn't get utilized, like nearly 65% get utilized, rest are not utilized. So either you are an athlete or living in the higher mountains, or you are a yogi, then that area get utilized and you have more alveoli working for you. So then the lung capacity increases even more. Out of the oxygen intake we have, 20% just goes to the brain, then the lungs, and for the rest of the body it's not much. So if we increase our oxygen intake, then the whole body has a better effect. There were research also being carried out. In one condition for one cell, all what was required oxygen which was given, and as a quality also and as a quantity also. And that cell, if I correctly remember, 33 years remained. Generally in the body, the RBC, the red blood cell, they will remain for 120 days. So if that shows that how much effective it is. There was another research being conducted in which the body cell, when they were not given proper oxygen, they become cancerous. And the one which were given the proper oxygen later on even, so even the cell which were become cancerous, they start to become better. So if we breathe deep long, one, it will change our emotions. Like you cannot be angry with the deep long breath. And when the breath is short, you cannot be happy. So whenever you see that any traction is coming or any moment which is uncomfortable, make the breath deep long. So practice that it remains all the time, but especially when the moment like this comes, make the breath deep long, and it will reduce the emotion which is going to come. So as anger, frustration, anxiety, sadness, whatever it is, impact of that will be reduced. Initially, it would happen that once the anger is expressed, then you'll remember to breathe deep long. But after some practice, you will know that it's going to come, and then you specifically that time make the breath deep long. Generally, if you the pH level of the blood, if you see, that's like 0 to 6 is acidic, and if you go above like 8 to 12, it's alkaline. And the normal pH level for the blood is 7.35 to 7.45. So more the oxygen you take in, it makes the blood also more alkaline. And alkaline the blood, more balance in the body, because acidic is generally more, and inflammation increases, which is harming. You could do this breathing in sitting posture, lying down, or even walking or anything. But with this, if you include the kumbhak, which is the holding the breath, so that you do, you can sit, you can also walk, but that's not preferable. Preferably sitting, and in sitting, your back is straight and neck is also straight. Now, the back is straight while lying down also, but don't use a pillow when you're doing the breath work. While the practice, don't have pillow, but when you're doing yoga nidra, then use pillow. So then the gases doesn't go into the brain, the blood doesn't go more into the brain. There are some misconceptions I hear a lot, that breathe from the stomach. Obviously, the breath will go into the lungs. What do you have? This upper abdomen and lower abdomen, and we have the diaphragm. So when we breathe deep long, the diaphragm get pushed down. So you have more to breathe. When your back is straight, then diaphragm is not pressed. So breath cannot go to the belly. You'll see lots of video on internet or lots of people talking about. I saw one very famous guru, maybe number 1 or number 2 in the world, talking about that breathe from the stomach. So the stomach you can't breathe. Don't bother where what comes up. You go all the way in, and equally important that all the way you take it out. Generally, the mistake we make is we don't take it all the way out. We could take in, but if it is not out, then the old air is there only, and unless that is changing, you will not get the full benefit. When we do the Mahamrityunjay Kriya, it's very important that you apply the bandhas properly, take it out all the way. So then with that, the whole energy flow system working, and that will make it really nice. So when you practicing this, the right combination is, if you are, let's say, I'm just giving you example, if one is the inhale, then 4 is the holding, which is internal kumbhak, internal hold, and then 2 is the release, and then 1 is external hold. So when we inhale, it's called purak. When we hold, it's kumbhak. So when we are holding with breath in, it's internal kumbhak. And when we release, it's rechak. And when it's all the way out and you are holding, it's external kumbhak. So the combination is 1 is to 4 is to 2 is to 1. Now to begin with, this practice could be a little difficult. So you can also do that. You inhale as long as you can, then hold as long as you can, then release as long as you can, then again hold as long as you can. But don't get frustrated that it is just too difficult. You start with whatever is good for you. You could even start with 3. So if you breathe in 1, 2, 3, then 4 times you hold it. So till 12 you hold. And then you release. So till 6 you release. And then external kumbhak till 3. If you increase the count then to from 3 to 4, then the 4 is in and 16 is internal hold and 8 is releasing the breath and holding outside is 4. So as once you take in, equally you hold outside. Then you keep increasing. So ideally for 3.5 minutes, you should be able to hold for a good state of a yogi. And that practice, there is a practice of this, doing it every day, 12 hours in 4 prayer, like 4 those important timings. So sunrise, then afternoon when it is solar plexus crossing, then in the evening, and then at the night 12 o'clock. So sometime it's 12, sometime it could be 11:30 that prayer. So you need to check the calendar and figure that out, those timings. This is best done in a jungle called Devdar. So if you Google, you will get that tree, Devdar. So Devdar tree, you do the practice. The duration for this is of 1 year. But here you just do like even half an hour every day. And you can take your picture before doing it. And then after 21 days, you again check. And clearly you will see a difference. And this will also enhance the sadhana. So the practice of the breath regulation or pranayam is done after the first is our yam niyam, which is behavior with others and then behavior with ourselves, the niyam. And third is the practice of asana. Then fourth, after the practice of asana, you do the pranayam. But that's ideal condition. Now, instead of not doing, do whenever you can. It's good to practice it empty stomach. You could also do before food, but not immediately after. When you feel little light. But simple breathing deep long you can do anytime, even while eating. For the survival, if you see, we can survive without food 30, 40 days. Without water, 4 days. And without breath, 4 minutes max. That is also if you are a yogi. So you can see the relation, that how important in all the activities the breath is. When we took birth, first thing we had breath. And if the breath doesn't come, it's not a good news. The baby cries and the first thing goes is the breath. And if it doesn't happen, doctor might smack to have the baby cry so he can breathe. And the last thing happens is the breath. For breath to be effective with the deep long, don't have any jerk. Keep it smooth. And when the breath goes in and then all the way when it goes out, down, and just before coming up, there is a pause. And then when the breath comes out, when it's all the way out and just taking in, there is another pause. So these are also called death points. These death points, if we master, then we master the death. If we can be aware in that moment, then one can know the truth. Not only during the death, but in life also, if these death points are mastered, one can know truth just by this one method. Liberation, self-realization, merging with God. The first technique out of the 112 meditation is on breath. And that states that when the breath is going in, you remain with the breath, and when it goes all the way down and before coming up, there is a pause. Experience with that pause, and then when it comes out, remain with the breath, not ahead of it, not a shadow of it. And when it's all the way out and before taking in, there is another pause. So, if you can remain with that breath exactly, that's a method to know truth. There are so many methods on breath we will be discussing and practicing one by one. The breath also cleans the 72,000 nerves which our body has. Now, this mentioning is there in the classical scriptures. Now, for thousands and thousands of years back, how they came to know that these are 72,000? You cannot go and count them. By any math, something will miss. The modern science figured out that there are 72,000 nerves in our human body. The Gherand Sahita mentions about it. The Gorakshatak also mentions about it. And there was no modern science at that time. This practice of breath, to have this in a combination, starts slow. Let's say you become brave and start with like 8, which inhale no problem. But holding 32, you might do it. But then releasing 16, that also you can do it. But holding outside 8, then there would be a challenge. So there is saying a word called shane. Shane means slow. Sane shane means slowly, slowly. You increase the practice. In the whole human history, maximum mystics were awakened by the methods of breath. Maximum. So there is something in this method. The breath is a carrier also for the prana. So what we see, the oxygen and releasing the carbon dioxide or other gases. So oxygen or other gases, they are the carrier. But what goes with that is the prana. So the science can check that, okay, oxygen coming. So even oxygen is that important, and how important the prana would be. So that's also you. I mean, master the breath, then it will help in mastering the prana as well. Kumbhak Paddhati of Raghuvira. So it is not of Raghuvira, it was given by the tradition. But there was a king in Kashi called Raghuvir. So he made this knowledge public, in that he mentions about 47 different types of kumbhak. Kumbhak is that holding. So 47 different types of breaths. So you may like to go through that. It's good text as a you are yogis. Anything else you want to ask? If you practice long, it does long. If you don't practice long, it is fast also. But it's just more work. Please ask direct question. Don't go here and there. Just what is your question? You ask that. Anybody else?
Just want to clear up for the practicality of like the long, slow breathing day to day. Is there a specific count or whatever is comfortable, like within my own body, right? Because that would start off relaxing, the blood. We spoke about, so that's something I'm interested in, like to try to be present with that. So is that something I want to count with? Or is it just like whatever my max capacity is throughout the day?
You could do this all the time as far as breathing in and out is concerned. But when we are holding it, for that there is a counting. So that combination is 1 is to 4 is to 2 is to 1. In that rhythm, and that you start slow, whatever comfortably you can do, and then gradually increase that. Right, right, right. And it will get used to, and you are young, so it won't be any problem that you did too much. And only thing you're doing is breathing deep, long. When you are like running in the higher mountains or are running really fast, that time it gives load. But in this one, it's only getting more oxygen, so it's also getting more capacity at the same time. So it will not be any problem. Ah. Right. Right. Hmm. It can also be, I mean, you can say, you can make it more beautiful. Keep a smile with the breath. When you are breathing, then you imagine that the nectar is going in. And in this part of the nostril, here when it touches, you feel that when it goes in, it's little cold. And when it comes out, because the air is processed, and it's little warm. So have that feeling of bliss all the time, that I'm in so much of joy and the nectar is going in, and outgoing breath is relaxing my body by releasing the toxins. So that would intensify it more. If you need to do some work and put the brain in that, then you can still keep the smile, and that would release the oxytocin, the happiness hormone. And with that, you do the work and keep the breath long, deep, and without any jerk, rhythmic. And if you forget, then as you remember again, then start again. In the day, you can audit 4 times that have I done the breathing or I forgot. Then if you forget, then do that determination meditation, and then give a reminder to unconscious mind to not to forget, and keep doing it, and it will have a substantial change in life without giving any extra time. And it will reduce the lots of disease. It will make the mood good, reduce the stress, and make us happy, more creative, productive. Because when we are happy, then we can be more productive, more innovative than when we are stressful. So all these phenomena, it will change. You could also, during this counting, you could use any clock, stopwatch, or the you can do the counting also, like 1, 2, 3, 4 type, that it is 1 second each. At times you might like that may not be accurate also. Sometimes you might count fast, but you can practice and count that. And the nerve speed can also be a counter. So when it's like tuck, 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 so that could be like, that is not exactly 1 second, but just to get an idea, that can be a counter as well.
Can the circulation can happen with the one flow to breathing, or it has to be just focusing on the pause between the inhale exhale only, the gap between the inhale exhale only?
The breathing is preparing us. Breathing won't give a self realization as such, this technique is concerned.
Okay, it's just
It's not a meditation. But if you're keeping the attention on breath, that would be meditation. That we are not ahead of the breath, we are not behind the breath. Be with breath. That's the first technique. Not a shadow of the breath by remaining behind and following it, and not going ahead of it, or not bringing a thought and thinking about that. Remaining exactly wherever the breath goes, and know truth or realize or merge with God, whatever word we want to use. So, like this, those all 112 methods, any method one can pick, but in the whole human history, if maximum people were awakened by the method of breath, then there is something in it.
So basically, one thing I've been thinking about is we are basically on this path where we're trying to learn who we are. We're trying to awaken, and we're doing all these different mind training exercises and these breath works. But I'm wondering, when we look at nature, all the trees, all the mountains, all the animals, all of these things, nothing else is like everything seems to be very comfortable just being. But it's us humans that have such a difficult time that we have to like come and sit and meditate and put time aside just to be with our mind. And I'm wondering, why is it that humankind, why is our mind something that we need to learn to control? Why did we just